Good morning, my dear students of class 5. Now today we're going to start with the 5th chapter, and that is Gulliver in the Land of the Little People, Part 2. Now if you remember the first part, how did the first part of this story end? Do you remember? The end of the first part was when Gulliver fell into a very deep sleep. Okay, he had been captured by the little people. They tied him up, and after giving him food, what happened? Gulliver fell back into a deep sleep. Now the second part starts. Okay, starts when, as Gulliver was falling asleep. Okay, now the king of that place, the king of the little people, he heard about the big man that came into his place, okay, his country. So he ordered his men to bring Gulliver to the city as soon as they could. Okay, now this was not easy. Why? Because Gulliver was a very, very huge giant, and these little people are so small, but they were very clever. So, you know what they did? They made a long carriage, okay, which was 3 inches high and which had 22 wheels. 900 of the strongest men, okay, they carried Gulliver onto this carriage, from where he was laying on the ground onto the carriage. Okay, imagine 900 of those little men, and 1,500 of the king's horses, finest horses, they pulled the carriage along. So as they were on their way towards the city, okay, to show the king what the giant looked like, as they were on the way, now some of the soldiers of the king, they wanted to see him up close. They wanted to take a look at Gulliver, okay, very close. So they climbed onto his face. Now one of them even stuck Gulliver with a spear, okay, in Gulliver's nose. Now this tickled Gulliver, and what happened was he sneezed so loudly that he was awakened from his sleep. Now these little soldiers, they fled in terror. They got scared of Gulliver. Now the next day what happened? The journey was finished. Okay, now Gulliver, he was brought to the king's city. Now, when the people first saw that he did not mean to do any harm to them, so what did they do? They removed all the ropes from Gulliver's body, okay, from his arms, from his body, from his head. They took it all out, but they left only a few chains, okay, on his left foot. And there were like 90 chains, okay, that they held in Gulliver's right foot. Why? Because they were scared that if they allow him to move freely, he would run away. Now, so what happened? Now the king and the queen and all the citizens, okay, they all came to see Gulliver. Some of them, most of them, in fact, they were very friendly to him. But some they didn't like Gulliver. Okay, so what they did, they shooted arrows at him. Now Gulliver caught 6 of these people, 6 of these little people who hated Gulliver. He put 5 of them in his pocket and pretended that he was going to eat the 6th one alive. But this made the 6th person that he carried in his hand, this little person was so scared that he screamed so loudly that Gulliver allowed this little person in his hand, along with his 5 friends, to run freely. So for many months, Gulliver lived in that little land. Okay, he lived happily with all the little people and the king. Now they would give him the king would keep 300 cooks just to make Gulliver's food, and 300 tailors to make a new suit for Gulliver, and 6 of the king's wisest men to teach him how to speak in their language. But slowly, some of these people, they began to grumble. Okay, now these little people, somehow after a few months, they got tired. They got tired of serving Gulliver. They got tired of stitching his big clothes. Okay, and they told to themselves, we must get rid of this man mountain. That is what they call Gulliver. Okay, they said, he eats up all our food. Let us give him a little less food every day, so that he will become thinner and thinner and starve to death. Okay, they wanted Gulliver to die. Why? Because they were tired of serving him. Now, when Gulliver heard about this plan, he was so hurt. He felt so sad. So what did he do? He made up his mind and he said, I'm going to go home now. It's time for me to go home. So one fine day, a small empty boat came floating to the shore. This was Gulliver's chance. Now he fitted it with a sail and filled it with food, and when the wind was fair, he set sail in it for home. So this is how Gulliver left the land of the little people. Now, after he set sail in that small boat, somehow on the way on the sea, what happened? A big ship picked him up, and they carried him back to England. Now, when the people of England heard his strange story, they would cry, come, come, good sir, surely you have been dreaming. They did not believe him. Now, since the people of England did not believe him, thankfully, Gulliver, what would Gulliver do, He would take out a few tiny sheep and cattle, which he had brought home with him, And after looking at these animals, the people of England, they believed Gulliver's story. So you see, Gulliver was also a wise man. He knew that if he would go back to England, he does not have any proof, right? That he came into the land of the little people. So in order to prove to the people of England, he took a few cattle, he took a few sheep, and he kept it on the boat where he set sail for his country. So that when he reached England, what happened? The people, although they did not believe the story, but the moment they saw these creatures, they all started saying, yes, it is true. His tales are true. So this is the end of chapter 5. This is the end of the story of Gulliver in the land of little people. Now I hope you have understand the story. You can see how part 1 and part 2 together is one big whole story. It's one story. So remember, there'll be questions. There are different questions in part 1, and in part 2 I will give you separate questions. But during the test, make sure I'm not going to give you from which part the questions are coming. You just need to go through the chapter so that you will, you remember the story and you'll be able to answer the question. So thank you, my dear students, for watching this video, and have a nice day.